everyone, welcome to Watch It Paint It. This week we're painting another model from Massive Darkness by Simon Games. We're going to be painting the Overseer. This was massively voted for on the Patreon. If you've not checked out my Patreon, please do so. Link in the description below. Come and check out all the voting fun we're having and picking the models and sculpting the channel. So this model started out with a prime in white primer by Citadel. Benson's painting the model this week and he's going to be using Terracota as the first colour for the base coat. Agnes, curious already, what is this creature in my house? So Agnes out of the way, Benson can continue. He's using Terracota to paint the fleshy part of this Overseer, so that's all those skinny bits between all the bones and eyeballs and all the other grotesque looking things. This model is hideous. No offense to any Overseers out there watching this. You're ugly guys, I'm sorry. Anyway, so Benson's using his huge brush. I don't know what that's called actually, apologies for that, but that's a big brush. So that would be the monster brush in my army painter brush set. Benson doesn't look like he's using an army painter. I don't know what that is. I'll try and get some feedback off him and leave a comment in the description, or just a comment below. Something will be below. Check out below. I'll tell you what the brush is if anybody cares. He's moving on to Karak Stone, and that's to paint the base coat of all of this creature's bony parts. So this model's basically flesh, bone, and tentacles. It's pretty easy paint job, to be honest. So hopefully you'll be able to follow along with this if you need any hints and tips, and you'll be able to paint your own massive Overseer. So Benson's still using the massive brush here. He's not switched down for any of the fiddly bits yet. So, I mean, the model's quite large. It's quite easy to paint all of these inverted commas fiddly bits, and there's no real difficulty yet. And obviously, as the video progresses, we'll use a few more brushes, show you a different brush to look at. Can't say I never give you guys anything. On to a little bit of shading now. This Carroburg Crimson, this is the red shader by Citadel, so similar to the jumpsuit shader that I use from the Army Painter. He's going to be applying that to all of the flesh, all of those terracotta base coated bits from earlier. So hindsight being 2020, Seraphim Sepia, just interrupt me, why don't you paint job? Seraphim Sepia being applied to shade all of the bones there. And if you look very, very carefully at the next bit, you can see how Benson doesn't actually know how to use a chair. Falls on the floor. Classic Benson. So yep, apply that shade to all of the terracotta from before, and then we're going to dry brushing that terracotta with the shade on back up to terracotta. So just catching a little bit of paint along all the raised edges of that flesh that we're going for there. We're going to continue highlighting the flesh, taking Vallejo's tan out next and using a dry brush still. So still just building up on top of that terracotta dry brushing. We're going to be applying a lighter coat, and Benson's down again. He's just not working the camera and or chair this video, apologies. So, as I was saying, we're just going to carry on dry brushing this tan on top of that terracotta, trying to make it look a little bit more realistic, a little more flesh-like. Karak Stone's going to come out. Same principle, just going to dry brush that on top of the Karak Stone that we painted the base coat in earlier. So as I was saying in hindsight earlier, I'll never have a chance to tell you this. At some point in this video, I may tell you my pro tip. Ushabti Bone's out now, and that's to do an additional highlight on top of that Karak Stone, just making it look a little bit shiny, a little more bone-like around the edges. Next, mixing tan and Ushabti Bone 1:1, 50-50, and this is for a further highlight on all of that flesh. So just painting it in with a detail brush there along all the tips and raised parts. Karak Stone's out, and this is just to paint on, again, using a detail brush, all of these pincers and the very edges that the dry brush couldn't really catch. Benson noticing at this point that it's quite difficult to see in the artwork. I did notice that the artwork does not represent the model entirely, and it's quite difficult to work out what's what, but he's obviously noticed they're supposed to be bone at this point, so he's just painting those back in with Karak Stone, along with highlighting up some of those pincery parts. Here, just switching back to terracotta again, just to touch up those eyeballs where we caught it with a little bit of Karak Stone. So, as I was saying, hindsight being 2020, we just think the skin of this model ends up looking a little bit too dark, so we would have actually done base coats out as tan instead of terracotta and highlighted up from a wash on that instead. So that's all I've been trying to say. We just think the skin's a little bit dark by the end, so adjust it accordingly, doing everything with tan upwards, I would guess at. So Ushabti Bone's out now, and that's to do the final highlight on all of this bone colour. So Benson's just using his detail brush and going along all of those little spiky pincers, claws. Yeah, claws is probably the best word. Those sharp bits, his killing implements. So yeah, just highlighting up the edge of that with the brightest Ushabti Bone, nice and neat there, getting his little teethy claws there as well, and then along the edge of the bone that he painted in before, now it's dry. And continuing to use the Ushabti Bone to paint the underside of the tentacles, that sort of crinkly bit with all the suctiony parts on, so just painting that in a nice pale colour. It's going to mix electric blue with white scar, about 2:1 of white scar, so this is a very pale blue, and that's to paint in all of the Overseer's tentacles here. So unfortunately Benson did miss that the tentacles go from this blue to sort of sea greeny, bluey greeny colour. So apologies for that, but if you fancy doing it yourself, as the tentacle gets wider, you've got to try and blend in a bluey green for there, just a bit darker. Our tentacles are just a little bit light. I think they should be this colour on the tips, but they should get darker as they move towards the body. But, you know, everyone's entitled to do their colour schemes completely different anyway. We just like to cover the artwork for you guys. So terracotta, electric blue and white now mixed 33% each, 1:1:1 ratio. So this is just to blend in that blue into the body of the Overseer. So this is the blending I was talking about, but there should be a step in between here of the greeny blue before it moves on to this colour. And here we're going to be trying to blend in those colours a little bit better. So Benson will be using tan here, heavily watered down, almost as a wash. And he'll be applying that to the body of the Overseer, as well as blending that now down the legs until he gets a much better gradient between all those colours we've just painted on. And you want to let that dry and see if you need to do it again, but hopefully not. Hopefully just one coat, and that should tidy that blend up a lot better. Seraphim Sepia is out again, and that's going to be for shading the underside of all this monster's tentacles. White scars to lighten up those eyes before we paint the rest in. It serves two purposes. The white does make the eyeball look a little bit more realistic with a little white ring around the edge, but it also allows us to paint yellow, which is hideous to paint full stop, let alone on top of a dark colour. So this white layer lets us paint the yellow on top quite brightly. We're going to be using Moon Yellow by Vallejo. We're going to be applying that on top of basically all of that white that we've just painted on there, but happy to leave a little ring around the edge to give it quite a realistic look for eyeballs. So using the base brush here, these eyes are huge. This must be the only time I've ever seen a base brush used for eyes so far. Abaddon Blacks to paint in some pupils on each one of those eyeballs. You can put them anywhere, which way, shape or form, but we're going for, they're all looking straightforward. He's looking exactly where his eyeball's facing. I'm back at my house now, and I'm going to be using Abaddon Black, and that's to start painting in the base. So I'm just going for a black base on all of these roaming monsters. Just keep them nice and uniform. Now this is by far the hardest base I've had to paint in so far. If I could remove the Overseer easily, I would do. If anybody knows an easy way of doing it, let me know in the comments below. I was a bit worried I was just going to snap him in pieces, because I would like to reattach him to this base. So that was as much as I could do on camera, and then I had to shoot off and just get a detail brush and take my time painting in between each tentacle. I decided to work up on the eyeballs because they just didn't quite look realistic to me. So I've taken Bay Blonde, which is probably my brightest blonde, and I'm just going to paint on a tiny little speck in the top corner of each eye. Now Benson didn't do this because he didn't know where the light would be coming from and how to realistically paint each eye independently. What I've just decided is I'm just going to paint the light as though it's at the top of every single eye. There is lights all over this dungeon, lighting him up everywhere in the exact same place, but I do think it makes them look a little bit more alive. Realistic, maybe not, but alive, definitely so. After that, I'm going to use Necromancer's Cloak, not coat. We should have worn a coat. It's chilly in dungeons. But I'm going to use a detail brush, and I'm going to do the same on the black now. So I'm going to apply a little bit in the top corner of each pupil. You'll see me do this, and slowly but surely I'm going to work up them looking realistic. This didn't take a lot of time. This was a couple more minutes, and I think the eyes look probably twice as good in person after this. Then I'm going to take a tiny bit of white scar and just dab a tiny dot on that Necromancer's cloak that I just painted in. So it just makes his eye a little bit lighter towards the top corner, where I'm assuming light may be reflecting off. So this might be a little bit difficult to see on camera, but I assure you, for the few extra minutes work, that did make the eyes look a lot more realistic. Trying to give you a little show there. So 1 hour, 30 minutes, including me doing the eyes. Wow, I thought that was great. That looks amazing for just over an hour's work. We did miss out. I think the skin should be slightly lighter and the tentacles were missing a colour. Let us know in the comments below if that detracts too much or if this video was still helpful anyway. Do big up Benson, give him a thumbs up below. I thought he did a great job on this model, and if anybody fancies getting involved with the voting, picking what we're doing next, where we're going with the channel, or even just getting involved in the community chat, do come and check out my Patreon in the description below. You'll find the link. Thank you all very much for watching.